Hotel. Everybody, come on in the building. Come on in the building. Make sure you hit that like button when you come in. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Okay, make sure you hit that like button and make sure that you subscribe to the channel. And when you subscribe, please make sure you hit that notification bell so you can be alerted when I go live. And whenever I post a new video, you could be alerted and you could be kept up to date. Today, family, today we got a real good one. As usual, this video is going to be chock full of a lot of information that you probably have heard and seen before, but I guarantee, even if you are familiar with the Nat Turner Rebellion, I'm going to show you guys some things that you never saw before. Mark my words. Hotel Brooklyn Zoo, good to see you in the building, family. What's up, Hotel fam? I hope everything is going well. Real quick, let me get my screen share started so we can get right into the information. Man, I'm gonna let you guys know why I'm doing this video. And like, watch, I promise I'm gonna show you guys some stuff that you never seen before. I know that's like a tall order to fill, but y'all know how I do my research. I dig deep with the research, and I go out of my way to bring it to y'all. So y'all see the title. Today, we're going to be talking about Nat Turner and his insurrection are real. 100% proof that Nat Turner and his insurrection are real. 100% proof. Now, you may be asking yourself, why do I even feel the need to do a video like this? The majority of people who follow my channel, the majority of people who watch my videos, you guys already know that Nat Turner is real. You never questioned it before. You've been learning about him your entire life. You've read things about him your entire life, and the question never entered your mind whether he was a real character or a fictional character. But here recently, I encountered someone online and blew my mind. They told me that Nat Turner was a fictional character. Now, I sort of dealt with this before when an individual tried to tell me that Harriet Tubman was a fictional character, and I had to do a video dispelling that myth. You can find it on my channel if you scroll through my past videos. But now I run into an individual who tried to tell me that Nat Turner was a fictional character, and they tried to cast doubt on the historical reliability of his insurrection as we know it. So what I wanted to do with this video and what I told him I was going to do, I was going to create a presentation and I was going to put together multiple pieces of information that can't be denied nor refuted. And I was going to 100% prove to this individual that Nat Turner is real. Now, why is this even important? Right? Why is this even important? It's important because there appears to be an effort to discredit our ancestors, and not only discredit our ancestors, but also take away from us some of our great ancestors who stood up for our rights and who literally laid down their lives so that our lives could be better. The African American community in America today, we enjoy the rights and the freedoms that we have because of ancestors like Nat Turner. He quite literally laid down his life. He gave his life for you and me, along with others, because he was not alone. But his name, Nat Turner, he is the face of that insurrection. So when we talk about Nat Turner, yes, indeed, we're talking about everyone that was involved in the insurrection that took place in Southampton County, Virginia, in August of 1831. So it's important for me to do a video like this because I defend the ancestors. I defend what the ancestors said. I defend what they believe, and I promote and I try to teach the truth and the accurate history of what our ancestors endured on these shores. So I took it as a personal slight when an individual tried to tell me that Nat Turner wasn't real, when I understand everything that he sacrificed for somebody like me. And so I wanted to do this video. And so if you could, like I say, make sure you like the video, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Feel free to share this video. And if you ever encounter someone online, on the dark YouTube streets or the Facebook streets or the Instagram, Twitter streets, and they're trying to say that Nat Turner and his insurrection are not real history, that Nat Turner was a fictional character, refer them to this video. And after watching this video, I can assure you, that they will have no argument left to challenge the historicity of the great ancestor Nat Turner, who literally laid down his life for you and me. So let's get right into it, family. First, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about Nat Turner's slave rebellion, and then I'm going to prove it with a mountain of evidence. I promise you, I'm going to overload you guys with a mountain of evidence and a mountain of historical documents. But we're going to start right here with Wikipedia. Now, again, I know a lot of people, y'all don't like Wikipedia, but be careful. Be careful. Don't attack me because I'm starting with Wikipedia, because this is just how I warm up. I'm going to show you guys the irrefutable documents themselves that prove that Nat Turner was historical. But let's just see what Wikipedia says so we can get a kind of a general understanding of what we're talking about. So when you look up Nat Turner's slave rebellion, this is what you find. Nat Turner's rebellion, historically known as the Southampton Insurrection, was a rebellion of enslaved Virginians that took place in Southampton County, Virginia in August 1831. Led by Nat Turner, the rebels killed between 55 and 65 white people, making it the deadliest slave revolt for white people in U.S. history. I'm going to say that again. Making it the deadliest slave revolt for white people in U.S. history, meaning that there were revolts in U.S. history and more than 55 or 65 people were killed, but those that were killed were our ancestors. They were black people, they were African Americans, they were Negroes. However, when you talk about slave revolts and slave rebellions in the U.S., in the history of the actual United States that was formed in 1776, Nat Turner's rebellion, his insurrection, was the deadliest. More white people died at the hands of Nat Turner and his group than in any other rebellion. They put in more physical work than any other rebellion. Another reason why we cannot allow anyone to make us believe that Nat Turner is a fictional character and his insurrection is not real. No, it's very real. It's very real. And I'm going to show you guys that because of Nat Turner's revolt, his insurrection, and other things, but because of Nat Turner's insurrection, our subsequent freedom in the Civil War came a whole lot quicker than it may have came. Now, let's go forward. They say that the rebellion was effectively suppressed within a few days at Belmont Plantation on the morning of August 23rd, but Turner survived in hiding for more than 30 days afterward. There was widespread fear amongst the white population in the aftermath of the rebellion. Militia and mobs killed as many as 120 enslaved people and free African Americans in retaliation. After trials, the Commonwealth of Virginia executed 56 enslaved people accused of participating in the rebellion, including Turner himself. Many black people who had not participated were also persecuted in the frenzy. Because Turner was educated and was a preacher, Southern state legislators subsequently passed new laws prohibiting the education of enslaved people and free black people, restricting rights of assembly and other civil liberties for free black people, and requiring white ministers to be present at all worship services. So when we talk about the Nat Turner insurrection, the dates that we have on record or from August 21st to August 23rd. The insurrection began, the murdering began on August 21st, and it was subsequently stopped on August 23rd. It lasted for a good 2 days straight. Now, when the rebellion was quote unquote put down, Nat Turner was not immediately caught. He was on the run, hiding in the swamps for more than 30 days. And he was not captured until late October, and he was not executed. He was not put to death until November 11th. He was hung on November 11th. So there was a lot of time between when the rebellion started to when Nat Turner himself was actually hung for what they called crimes. But he was being hung for being a freedom fighter. And what happened was basically Nat Turner matter of fact, I'm gonna just go into the documents, and I'm going to let the documents tell the story. Let's go a little further, family. Now, this book on your screen, I actually own this book, and I actually own all of the stuff that I'm telling you guys about. You damn right. Long live Uncle Nat Turner, man. May his name live on forever, and may his memory never die. So the book that you're looking at on your screen is called and is known as The Confessions of Nat Turner. Now, the confessions that were purported to have been made by Nat Turner were claimed to have been acquired by a lawyer named Thomas Gray beginning November 1st, 1831. Now, remember, Nat Turner was captured October 30th, 1831. And the lawyer, Thomas Gray, he said that he had went to visit Nat Turner in jail on November 1st, 1831, and Nat Turner gave him an account of why he did what he did and what happened in the actual insurrection, like a play-by-play. Me and this guy, we went to this slave plantation first. This is who we killed. Next, we went here. This is who we killed. Next, we went here. These individuals, they joined our group, they joined our army, and we went here and we killed this individual. So the confessions plays out almost like not a necessarily an autobiography, but it is a play-by-play of what led Nat Turner to do what he did and the events that played out in the insurrection. Now, it is because of this book right here that people today are trying to say that Nat Turner is a fictional character and his insurrection was not real. They're saying that Thomas Gray made all of this up. His so-called confessions of Nat Turner were nothing more than a lie, and he created this narrative, and he created this story in order to write a book, write several pamphlets, and to make money. Now, I'm not here to defend Thomas Gray, and I'm not even here to say that everything that Thomas Gray was actually right and exact. I'm not here for none of that. I just want to show you guys that this is where they center it around. You're going to notice a lot of times when people try to say that our ancestors aren't real, that our real ancestors are fictional characters, what they have to do is they have to propose when this character was created and by whom. So they try to say that the Nat Turner narrative was created by Thomas Gray. So I want you guys to remember that name, and I want you guys to remember the date. Thomas Gray visited Nat Turner in prison November 1st, 1831, because Nat Turner was not captured until October 30th. So what we're going to do first, we're going to go into history and we're going to see if we can find attestations to Nat Turner, his insurrection, as well as the events that played out in his insurrection before November 1st, 1831. Because, now think, family, if they are claiming that the Nat Turner story is fictional and it was created by Thomas Gray after November 1st, 1831, all we have to do is show Nat Turner's existence, the existence of his insurrection, and the details of his insurrection prior to November 1st. Because if we can show it prior to November 1st in other sources outside of the confessions of Nat Turner, then we will successfully prove that the origin of the story is not Thomas Gray and the confessions of Nat Turner. Are you with me so far? I know you guys are. So that is what we are going to do. So the first place I want to take you guys is the Richmond Constitutional Whig newspaper. Now, what a lot of people don't know, right? And you can tell that they don't know because they're trying to say that Nat Turner was a fictional character and he was created by Thomas Gray after November 1st, 1831. What a lot of people don't know is that when Nat Turner's insurrection took place, there was a lot of correspondence between the people on the ground in Virginia, in Richmond, Virginia, with individuals in other parts of the country, And these correspondences were posted in the newspaper. Like right now today, imagine right now today, there's a school shooting. Well, I don't want to bring up. Let's say there's a terrorist attack, right? Let's say there's a terrorist attack like 9/11. As soon as that terror attack happens, what do you think is going to be a response? People are going to be posting about it on social media. People are going to be hold on just a second, family. Hold on just a second. Give me just a second. Okay, people are going to be posting about it on social media. They are going to be news. The news is going to come out. News reporters are going to try to show up on the scene. They're going to try to get footage. They're going to be trying to interview witnesses, ask people what happened. They're going to be posting things in magazines. They're going to be posting things in the newspaper, and people are immediately going to start talking about what just happened, and they're going to be trying to piece together the evidence to get a full understanding of exactly what took place. So when the Nat Turner insurrection took place, the exact same thing happened. People immediately started to report on it. Now, remember, this is in the newspaper, August 29th, 1831. I'm going to show you what's in the newspaper on that date. Now, this is well before November 1st, 1831. So if we see anything about Nat Turner, anything about his insurrection, anything about the details of his insurrection, then we have already dispelled the myth that Nat Turner was created. This narrative was created by Thomas Gray in the Confessions of Nat Turner. It will be just that simple. So I actually have these files online. Now, some of this stuff, it costs money to get. When you want some newspaper archives, a lot of times you have to pay for it. You have to order this type of stuff. So I think that's why a lot of people don't have it, and a lot of people haven't read it. But fortunately, I've been blessed with a job to where I do have extra spending money to spend on this type of research to bring to you guys, and individuals. They do support me like through the Cash App. I have received several donations, so I appreciate that, and that also allows me to purchase some of this research that I share with you guys. So what we're going to do, we're going to zoom in on the article. Now, what we have here, this is going to be an eyewitness testimony from August 25th, 1831, where someone sent this in to be published in the newspaper. So what I want you guys to do is look at the clipping on the right, and we're going to read some of this together. Now, this says extract of a letter from the senior editor, dated Jerusalem, Southampton Courthouse, Thursday evening, August 25th. Now, Nat Turner's insurrection was from August 21st to August 23rd. So 2 days after the rebellion has been quote unquote put down, or the killing has stopped, troops from other parts of the country had shown up because they heard what was going on. They heard that the blacks were rising up, the slaves were rising up, and that they were murdering scores of white people. And so they called in the U.S. Troops. They called in several militias, and just white people from all over were coming to try to put down this insurrection because they didn't know what was happening. And even after it was quote unquote put down on August 23rd, they didn't know if the insurrection was literally put down because they still didn't have the leader. Nat Turner himself was still on the run. And so what they had to do is they had to go and search the area, and they had to try to investigate and find out who all was a part of this plot, who was a part of this insurrection. So while the killing of white people stopped on August the 23rd, technically, since everybody wasn't arrested and the situation wasn't resolved, and even the leader of the insurrection wasn't arrested, the insurrection itself was not stopped. It had not ceased. So when you see someone writing on August 25th, 2 days after the killing of the whites had stopped, you have to understand that this is right in the thick of the insurrection. And this guy is one of the troops. He is there to try to, search people's houses, question people at the last, find out what was going on. So this is what they say, family. The documented evidence on the ground in Richmond. The Richmond troop arrived here this morning a little after 9 o'clock after a rapid, hot, and most fatiguing march from Richmond. On the road, we met 1,000 different reports. No two agreed, in leaving it impossible to make a plausible guess at the truth. On the route from Petersburg, we found the whole country thoroughly alarmed, every man armed, the dwellings all deserted by the white inhabitants, and the farms most generally left in possession of the blacks. So he's telling you when they first arrived, when the troops first began to arrive, they found that there was 1,000 different reports of what was going on. Some people were saying that there were 40 Negroes that were in open rebellion. Some were saying that there were 100. Some were saying that there were 1,000. Some were saying that 50 white people had died. Some said that 100 white people had died. And everybody, the entire white population was afraid. And so all of the men were armed, and they had effectively evacuated their homes in the area where the insurrection was taking place. They had evacuated their homes. They had got their women and children out there because murder was taking place. Murder was taking place. And they said that the farms were generally left in possession of the blacks. All of the white people had got out of Dodge when the murdering started. And so after they got out of Dodge, when the murdering started, the militias and the troops came in to try to put down the rebellion and punish the people responsible. And the men, the white males, they were coming back and they were armed and they were trying to, figure out what was going on and get everyone that was responsible. So he goes on to say, on our arrival at this village, we found Commander Elliott and Colonel Ward with 250 United States troops from the neighborhood of Old Point and a considerable militia force. So I saw one video where they were trying to say that Nat Turner was a fictional character. They were trying to say, well, how were they able to put down this rebellion so quickly? Simple. They responded in mass. You had militia troops respond to Nat Turner's rebellion, and this guy's telling you on the ground, he's saying when they got there, there was already 250 United States troops from the neighborhood of Old Point that had come to the area to put down a rebellion, right? Which is why they say that the killing of the whites stopped on August 23rd, because United States troops had shown up. This guy's giving us the number 250, and there was a considerable militia force, and regular white people were just arming themselves trying to put down the rebellion. Look, he goes on to say, a troop of horse from Norfolk and one from Prince George have since arrived. So on August 25th, more people were showing up. Jerusalem was never so crowded from its foundation. For besides the considerable military force assembled here, the ladies from the adjacent country, to the number of 300 or 400, have sought refuge from the appalling dangers by which they were surrounded. So the Nat Turner insurrection was so bloody and they were so afraid that there was about 300 or 400 ladies who were seeking refuge in this particular city. Remember, I told you when the insurrection took off and word spread that the whites were being killed indiscriminately, because Nat Turner and his group, they were just going from plantation to plantation, killing people. They were killing men, they were killing women, and they were killing children. Yes, even babies in the crib, they were cutting their throats. And when the white people saw that type of violence, they were afraid. And so you see that he's given the number of 300 or 400 ladies that have sought refuge. They have ran, they have got the freak out of Dodge, trying to run away from this. So it goes on to say, here, for the first time, we learned the extent of the insurrection and the mischief perpetrated. Rumor had infinitely exaggerated the first, swelling the numbers of the Negroes to 1,000 or 1,200 men, and representing its ramifications as embracing several of the adjacent counties, particularly Isles of Wight and Greensville. But it was hardly in the power of rumor itself to exaggerate the atrocities which had been perpetrated by the insurgents. Whole families, father, mother, daughters, sons, sucking babes, and school children, butchered, thrown into heaps, and left to be devoured by the hogs and dogs, or to putrefy on the spot. So the initial reports that came out about the Nat Turner insurrection, there were a lot of rumors being told. Some of the stuff was true, some of the stuff was false. You guys know how it go. When something just a little while ago, there was something happened in Miami, and all of a sudden, all kind of reports start coming out. Someone said that there was a active shooter at the mall in Miami. Some people were coming out saying that they saw aliens. Some people said that they saw 10-foot aliens. Some people were saying that it was some kind of military drill. But when the thing happened, and it was so much widespread panic that rumors started. Everybody came up with their own story about what was happening at the mall in Miami. And so some of the things that were said were facts, and some of them were not facts. And so they had to sift through the nonsense. And this is exactly what happened with the Nat Turner insurrection. But we see for a fact that Nat Turner and his insurrection are real, and that these white people were actually slaughtered, because you're seeing it in the newspaper from August 25th, 1831, from somebody on the ground 2 days after the insurrection was quote unquote put down, seeing the dead bodies himself, saying that there were whole families, father, mother, daughter, son, sucking babes, and school children butchered. Now, when you read the Confessions of Nat Turner, which I do have the book, in the Confessions of Nat Turner, they talk about this, whole families being slaughtered. And you would have individuals that would try to tell you that that is made up. That's not made up. That's not fictional. This actually happened. Look, they say, at Mr. Levi Waller's, his wife and 10 children were murdered and piled in one bleeding heap on his floor. Waller himself was absent at the moment, but approaching while the dreadful scene was acting, was pursued and escaped into a swamp with much difficulty. One small child in the house at the time escaped by concealing herself in the fireplace, witnessing from the place of her concealment the slaughter of the family and her elder sisters among them. Another child was cruelly wounded and left for dead, and probably will not survive. All these children were not Mr. Waller's. A school was kept near his house, at which and between which and his house the ruthless villains murdered several of the helpless children. Many other horrors have been perpetrated. They killed, as far as ascertained, the killed as far as ascertained, amount to 62. I send the list believed to be correct as far as it goes. So here are the details of the Nat Turner insurrection months before the confessions were even printed, right? So look, now check this out. He says a large portion of these that were murdered were women and children. It is not believed that any outrages were offered to the females. That basically means that nobody was raped. Nat Turner and his army weren't going around raping women. What they were doing, they were going around killing. The It appears that the plan of Nat Turner was to gather the individuals that was willing to start the insurrection with him, and they planned on going from plantation to plantation. I.e., they were going to go to one plantation, kill everybody white that they saw, and encourage all of the blacks to join their army. Then all of them were to go to the next plantation, kill every white person that they saw, from the youngest to the old, and then any black person on that plantation should join their army. And Nat Turner envisioned in his mind going from plantation to plantation like this, slaughtering the whites, building his forces, and more or less his intent was to free his people with the sword. Nat Turner had enough. Hold on, give me just a second, family. I'll be right back. Okay, sorry about that. So that was basically his plan. Now look, let's go a little further. They say how or with whom the insurrection originated is not certainly known. So by August 25th, they didn't know 100% that Nat Turner was the leader of the insurrection. But you're going to see when they find out. They say the prevalent belief is that on Sunday, week last, at Barnes Church in the neighborhood of the Cross Keys, the Negroes who were observed to be disorderly took offense at something, it is not known what, that the plan of insurrection was then and there conceived, matured in the course of the week following, and carried into execution on Sunday night, the 21st August. The atrocities commenced at Mr. Travis's. A Negro called Captain Moore, who it is added is a preacher, is the reputed leader. So initially, they said that the leader was somebody called Captain Moore, and this came from all of these numerous rumors and accounts that they told us that they were encountering when they first showed up. Now remember, at this point, Nat Turner isn't even caught yet, and they haven't had an opportunity to question everybody and beat the truth out of everybody. So what we're seeing is the information unfold. And when you see the information unfold like this, it becomes silly for someone to try to tell you that Nat Turner is a fictional character and that his insurrection isn't real. They just probably never read these newspaper articles. So again, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share this. And if anyone tells you that Nat Turner is fictional, refer them to this video so that they can see the eyewitness accounts in the newspapers days after the insurrection took place. He says, on Monday, most of the murders were perpetrated. It is said that none have been committed since that day. The numbers engaged are not supposed to have exceeded 60. One account says 100, another not so many as 40. 12 armed and resolute men were certainly competent to have quelled them at any time. But taken by surprise with such horrors before their eyes and trembling for their wives and children, the men most naturally only thought in the first place of providing a refuge for those dependent upon them. Basically saying that he's trying to say that a few white men could have put down the insurrection when it first started, but they were so scared. That's what he's telling us. But they were so scared that instead of fighting back, they decided to run. And they tried to run and get to safety and seek refuge somewhere. That's how violent this insurrection was. Okay. Uh let's see. Let's jump ahead. I don't want to read every single uh part. Okay, look, check this out. On the right hand side, where it says Jerusalem, Saturday, 27. So they have been here for 2 days now, questioning people, um, trying to ascertain what actually happened, doing a body count, and you're going to see how they are becoming to learn more information about what took place. And you're going to see that from the 25th to the 27th, they found out that the leader of the insurrection was actually Nat Turner, and he was still on the run. Look, he says, since writing the accompanying letter, the one that I just read the majority of, which was expected to have been sent off immediately, other prisoners have been taken, and in one or two instances put to death forthwith by the enraged inhabitants. Some of these scenes are hardly inferior in barbarity to the atrocities of the insurgents, and it is to be feared that a spirit of vindictive ferocity has been excited, which may be productive or further enrage and prove discreditable to the country. Since Monday, the insurgent Negroes have committed no aggression, but have been dodging about in the swamps in parties of 3 or 4. They are hunted by the local militia with great implacability and must all eventually be slain or made captive. So, even at this time, on the 27th, they have not captured everyone who was involved in Nat Turner's insurrection. It was not only Nat Turner that was still on the run, and they still don't have a full account of what happened. They're capturing some men, they're torturing them, and they're getting information out of them. So even when you see that Nat Turner's insurrection lasted from August 21st to August 23rd, basically what they're saying is that's the time period that the white people were being killed indiscriminately. But they had not arrested everybody. They had not killed everybody that was involved. They had not gotten justice on August 23rd, because here on August 27th, they're saying that the local militia and the U.S. troops are still hunting men who are hiding out in the swamps. Okay, they're still hiding out in the swamps, but by this time they had captured a few individuals, so they had a little more information. Now, look, check this out. One of the things I heard when they were trying to say that Nat Turner was a fictional character is somebody had tried to throw out the idea that they created the Nat Turner narrative because blacks in America are really Native Americans, or we Indians, or we indigenous to the land. We always been here. We didn't come from Africa. Those types of comments. And so they were trying to say that, oh, Nat Turner was really a Indian, or he was a Native American. But I have to say that no, you will not give our freedom fighters to another race. I'm sorry. The Native Americans, they had plenty of battles and wars and fights with the Europeans. You don't need to take our freedom fighters and give them to another race. Now, watch this. Check this out. They try to say that Nat Turner was an Indian, but in the official documentation, when they were trying to make heads or tails of his insurrection, they thought that Nat Turner was trying to head to Africa. Now, why would they be assuming that he was going to Africa if he wasn't an African in America, right? If he was a Native American, why weren't they assuming that he was trying to go reunite with his tribe? Do you understand what I'm saying? Why didn't they assume that he was trying to make it back to his ancestral land in America? No, you cannot have our freedom fighters. He was an African American. He was a descendant of Africans enslaved in America. He was enslaved on a plantation, and he rose up and he fought for our freedom. That's what happened, and you cannot change our history. They say the more intelligent opinion is that they had none. What they're talking about is what the ulterior motive was for the rebellion. Like, what were they trying to accomplish, right? What were they trying to get? And honestly, Nat Turner just wanted the complete and total freedom of his people. That's it. He wanted his people to be free. And he felt like God had shown him visions that he would lead his people to freedom. That's true. So look, he says the more intelligent opinion is that they had none, no ulterior motive. Though some of them say it was to get to Norfolk, seize a ship, and go to Africa. My own impression is that they acted under the influence of their leader Nat, a preacher and prophet among them, that even he had no ulterior purpose, but was stimulated exclusively by fanatical revenge and perhaps misled by some hallucination of his imagined spirit of prophecy. So there you had it. They thought, or some people speculated, that they were trying to seize a ship and get to Africa because they were descendants of Africans. It wasn't no damn Indian, man. You can't have him. You can't have Nat Turner. I'm sorry. And you see, for the first time on the 27th, now the revolt or the insurrection was quote unquote put down on the 23rd. 4 days later, after investigations, arresting some people, questioning people, searching the swamps, they have now learned the name of the leader, Nat Turner. We have his name in the historical record months before Thomas Gray wrote the book, The Confessions of Nat Turner. And they even say that he was a preacher and a prophet among the people. You even have some people now today, they try to say that, oh, Nat Turner wasn't a preacher, right? They try to discount that part of the story. But from the very beginning, this wasn't something that was made up later. From the very beginning, they found out that the leader of the insurrection was Nat Turner. He was a preacher and a prophet among the people. They looked at him as such. They saw him as a prophet, and that's why they followed him, because he claimed to get revelation from God that the freedom of his people was at hand. Now, I want you guys to think about something. This happened in 1831. Some 30 years later, not even a full generation later, some 30 years later, here come the Civil War, and what happened? The total emancipation of our people. Huh? Nat Turner was on to something, man. Nat Turner was on to something. And people they just don't want to admit it. They just don't want to believe that God would come to one of our ancestors. They don't want to accept that. But we're not here to convince them to nothing. And so look, they go on to say, committing the first murder, finding themselves already beyond the reach of pardon, drunk and desperate, they proceeded in blind fury to murder and destroy all before them. Okay? You see that? Now look, check this out. What I'm going to show you now is did Nat Turner and his army actually murder over 60 white people? Yes. And you even have a list of them, their names. That is in the historical record months before Thomas Gray wrote the book, The Confessions of Nat Turner. Remember, family, they're trying to say that Nat Turner was a fictional character because of this book, The Confessions of Nat Turner. And Thomas Gray says he interviewed Nat Turner after he was arrested November 1st. Okay? So if the story was made up after November 1st, if it was made up when the book was published, what the heck is all these newspaper articles talking about? That's November 1st. So here we have in the newspaper, August 29th, 1831, they have a list of the white people that were murdered. Look, a list of persons killed in the insurrection, which commenced the 21st of August, 1831 in Southampton County. Joseph Travis, his wife and 3 children, 5 people. Miss Turner, Hartwell Peoples, the overseer, and Miss Newman, 3 people. Miss Reese and son, William, and something Barham, 3 more people. Tragon Dale, wife and child. Henry Bryant, wife, child, and wife's mother. Miss Katharina Whitehead, son Richard, 4 daughters and grandchild. I can't really read that. Sahathel Francis, overseer of Nathaniel Francis and 2 children. Thomas Barrow and somebody Vaughn. Miss Levi Waller and 10 children. You guys see the list? They even have the list of the white people that were murdered. Somebody tried to say online that there is no evidence of Nat Turner's insurrection. What about the bodies of all these white people that were killed? Who killed them? Who killed them, man? Have you probably never seen this list before in a newspaper from 1831. Probably never seen this clipping. But I have this clipping. I have this clipping, and they tell you that Nat Turner was the leader. They already give you that game. They already get that game up. You see? And so again, the story is not made up. The real history is that Nat Turner and his army went from plantation to plantation, killing white people indiscriminately. Everybody white they saw, they murdered. Period. Everybody, I don't care if you was a baby in the crib. That's literal. No, literally. Babies in the crib, they cut their throat. That's not made up history. That's what happened. And here we have a list of 62 names of the bodies that they found when they made it to Southampton County. Okay? Now check this out on the right. The insurgents all taken or killed except Nat Turner, the leader, after whom there is a warm pursuit. Now, this is a lie, right? I'm going to tell you what's a lie about it. This is August 29th. Now, what they're saying is all of the insurgents have been captured or killed. Now, I believe that they're just saying that so that the people won't be afraid. But if Nat Turner escaped and he was still hiding out in the swamps, I believe there was some other people still hiding out in them swamps as well. That's my personal belief. But we see here that you clearly see the name Nat Turner, the leader, is still on the loose August 29th, 1831. Now, if they had the leader of the insurrection, they would have been parading him around. Right? They would have been parading him around. So we see that Nat Turner is still on the loose. That's very important. They go on to say the troops will be discharged shortly, saying it based like the troops will be able to go home. The general reports 48 prisoners. So they have 48 prisoners. The Richmond troop is at headquarters, officers and members all well and in good spirits. Blah, 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 blah. You guys can pause it. Y'all can read the rest of these clips. Y'all can pause some of this and read the full clip. But what I'm trying to show you guys is the elements of the story that you heard about in school. The elements of the story that you read about. There is a faction of the population now trying to say that this stuff is fictional and made up. And that's just a lie. That's just a lie. You can't rewrite my history. You can't rewrite the history of my ancestors. I won't allow it. I'm a vanguard for the ancestors, and I'm a vanguard for actual history. I'm the real bookworm. I told you I read everything. The book that they're trying to say, prove that he's a fictional character. That's my thumb holding the book. That's my thumb. I got the book. I've read it several times. Right? These newspaper clippings. I have this. This is my work that I'm putting up here. I actually have a physical copy, of course. I have the digital version, but I have the digital version. I've read through these articles. So you can't pull that small time stuff over on me. And now, anybody that watches this video, they have access to this work as well. They can tell you that all of this stuff is in the newspaper. Look what else they go on to say. Where they say that look, let's go here. All parties, where my finger is at. All the party have been killed or taken, with the exception, as is believed from the statement of prisoners and other information, or from 4 or 5 who have retreated to a swamp and will probably be taken. Now, right there, he's admitting that maybe 4 or 5 are still hiding out in the swamp, along with Nat Turner. That's why I said I believe it's just, they just tried to make them feel calm by saying that everybody had been arrested or killed, because they know that it's probably still somewhere out there that they haven't gotten yet. But he goes on to say, Nat, the ringleader who calls himself general, pretends to be a Baptist preacher, a great enthusiast, declares to his comrades that he is commissioned by Jesus Christ and proceeds under his inspired directions, that the late singular appearance of the Son was the sign for him, etc., etc., and is among the number not yet taken. The story of his having been killed at the bridge near Jerusalem and of the 2 engagements there unfounded. It is believed he cannot escape. So as they arrested more individuals and as they interrogated more individuals, they found out more information. And so you can see, as we read the articles and as the days go forward, we get more insight into the story. And all of this information is available prior to Thomas Gray writing his book, The Confessions of Nat Turner, right? You already have people giving him up. So now we see that he's a Baptist preacher. And in the ranks of the his army, he was known as the general. So Nat Turner was known as the general, he was known as a preacher, and he was known as a prophet. And he claimed that what he was doing on behalf of Jesus Christ and God. And he claimed to get visions, and he claimed to have talked to the Spirit guiding him to do that. Now, I'm going to show you guys in a little bit where they actually found documents written by Nat Turner. Secret documents where they say that he wrote in like hieroglyphic characters that they couldn't discern, where he documented some of his prophecies. I'm going to show you guys this stuff. Okay? I'm going to show you guys this stuff. And by, like I say, by the end of it, you're going to know that 100% certainty Nat Turner is a real person. Look, he says the general is convinced from various sources of information that there has existed no general concert among the slaves. Circumstances impossible to have been feigned demonstrate the entire ignorance on the subject of all the slaves in the counties around Southampton. So basically why he's saying that is because the white people assume that all of the slaves had agreed to rebel at one time and just as one group slaughter all of the white people. But they all didn't agree to do that. The plan, again, was for Nat Turner and his group to go from plantation to plantation, killing everybody white that they saw and adding to their number as they came across more black people. And so what they were seeing was the majority of black people didn't even know that the insurrection was about to take place. Let me see, the highest. Okay, and then that on the front it's just more talking about how they fled. The highlighted portion of the clipping on the right says the families who had fled from supposed danger and taken refuge at Hicksford's Greenville have generally returned to their homes. So if Nat Turner and his insurrection is fake, what the heck was all of these white people running from? What the heck was all of these white people running from? Now, further proof, because I told you guys I'm going to give you all, this is going to be a document overload. So we've just seen several newspaper articles that basically lay out a good outline of the Nat Turner Rebellion. We see his name, we see him called a prophet, we see him called a preacher, we see that he's claiming that he had visions. The people that was following him followed him because he said that he had visions from God, that he was supposed to free their people. But do we have any other historical documentation other than newspaper articles? Right? As a matter of fact, we do. Now remember, Nat Turner wasn't arrested. That's why I kept showing you guys. He wasn't captured and arrested until October 30th. So he's still on the run. So on September 17th, 1831, Governor John Floyd put out a $500 reward on Nat Turner because they were looking for him and they knew he was the leader. They were looking for the leader. So look, this says the document signed and sealed by Governor John Floyd on September 17, 1831, offers a reward of $500 to anyone who captures Nat Turner, the leader of the recent insurrection, and conveys him to the Southampton County Jail. Now, this came from the Library of Virginia, and this is the actual facsimile picture of the document. You see John Floyd, the then governor's name, signed at the bottom. So look, let's see if we can read some of this. I want you guys to read this information. Now, again, it's in cursive, so we probably can't make out every single word. But look, this is from September 17, 1831. Again, this is around 2 months before the Confessions of Nat Turner even came out. And this is a governor, John Floyd. This ain't got nothing to do with Thomas Gray. So it's a lie that Nat Turner is a fictional character. Look, by the governor, look at the top of the document. By the governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia, a proclamation. I'm willing to bet. Remember I told you guys at the beginning, I was going to show you some stuff pertaining to the Nat Turner insurrection that you never seen before. I'm willing to bet money you never saw this $500 reward placed on Nat Turner's head by the governor. Some of you might have, but the majority of you, I'm pretty sure you probably haven't. So you're welcome. I like bringing new stuff to the table. Look, whereas the slave Nat, otherwise called Nat Turner, the something and leader of the late insurrection in Southampton, is still going at large. So if Nat Turner is a fictional character, why do we see his name referenced in an official proclamation by Governor John Floyd in September of 1831? If Nat Turner is a fictional character created after November 1st by a lawyer named Thomas Gray, why do we see his name in September of 1831 in an official document offering $500 reward for him? Ask yourself that. The document goes on to say, therefore, I, John Floyd, governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia, have thought proper and do hereby offer a reward of $500 to any person or persons who will apprehend and convey to the jail of Southampton County this said slave Nat. I highlighted his name. And I do moreover require all officers, civil and military, and exhort the good people of the Commonwealth to use their best something to cause this said fugitive to be apprehended, that he may be dealt with as the law directs. Okay? So here we have an official proclamation given by the governor, John Floyd, in September of 1831, offering $500 for anybody to arrest Nat Turner. So they already knew that he was the leader of the insurrection. And when September hit, he was still on the run. Okay, this is an official document. This is an official document. Can't be refuted. You see his name in there. Can't be refuted. If anybody tell you that Nat Turner is a fictional character, referring to this video. We're going to dispel all of that nonsense. Matthew Daniels, aka the real bookworm, is the vanguard for the ancestors. You will not change my ancestors' history. I won't allow it. And you won't make my freedom fighters appear to be fictional characters. Now look, check this out. Family, check this out. We even have a description of Nat Turner that's written on the reverse side of that proclamation. Because, of course, if they're going to apprehend Nat Turner for the governor, for the state, they need to know what he looked like. Who are we looking for? Now, this is interesting because you would notice when you look into the historical record, when you had like runaway slaves and things like that, and you had rewards for them, they always gave a description of them. So have you ever wondered what Nat Turner looked like? Because I saw one of the things that they said to validate in their own mind that Nat Turner was a fictional character was that there were no pictures of him. So I guess they're trying to say that, oh, because of that, we don't know what he looked like. No, we do know what he looked like. We have a description of Nat Turner, and it did not come from the Confessions of Nat Turner and Thomas Gray. Okay? On the back of the reward, the proclamation for the reward, we have a description. We have a description of him. And I'm going to zoom in on that as well so we can read it. But look, Nat Turner, what you're going to see from this document is that Nat Turner is between, matter of fact, let's read it first. Let's just read it. Look, this is a description of Nat Turner. In case you were wondering what he looked like. How many of you saw this before? Hotel. Nat is between 30 and 35 years old, 5 feet 6 or 8 inches high, weigh between 150 and 160 pounds, rather bright complexion, but not a mulatto. Let me stop right there. To anybody that try to tell you that Nat Turner was an Indian, or he was a Native American, or he was indigenous American, no. It says, but not a mulatto. Mulatto is a mixed breed. So he's not even mixed. He's not even white and black. He's not even Indian and black. He's just pure, black mama, black father. Rather bright complexion, but not a mulatto. Broad shoulders, large flat nose, large eyes, broad flat feet, rather knock-kneed, walks brisk and something, hair on the top of his head very thin, no beard except on the upper lip and the tip of his chin, a scar on one of his temples, also one on the back of his neck, a large knot on one of the bones of his right arm near the wrist, produced by a blow. So even though what Nat Turner looked like, he was between 30 and 35 years old. He was 5'6" or 5'8", somewhere around 5'7". He was between 150 and 165, bright complexion, large flat nose, broad shoulders, large eyes, blah, 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 blah. He had thin hair on the top of his head, balding, going bald, male pattern baldness. He had no beard except on his upper lip. He had a mustache, and he had a little hair on the tip of his chin. He had a scar on one of his temples and a scar on the back of his neck, and he had a large knot on his right arm by the wrist from where he had been hit, probably beaten as a slave one day. Okay? So we even have descriptions of Nat Turner, this so-called fictional character. We have his description on official documents. Now look, check this out, family. So while he was while he was on the run. Hold on just a second. Taz Malik, salute. I never heard the description of him. Very interesting. Hotel family. I said in the beginning, I'm gonna show some stuff that people never seen before. As a matter of fact, like I say, yeah, you know, if you want, go back over this video, pause it, screenshot it, get that description, official description of what Nat Turner looked like. We know what he looked like. We know what he looked like, right? We got it. So in late September, Nat Turner is still on the run, even with the $500 on his head from the governor. They still weren't able to capture him. So I'm going to show you guys more newspaper articles in the Richmond Constitutional Whig that was ran September 26, 1831. Now let me ask you guys a question. How many of you knew that Nat Turner had a wife? Now, some people claim that the only reason they say that Nat Turner had a wife is because of the Confessions of Nat Turner in the book by Thomas Gray. But I'm going to show you discussion about Nat Turner's wife in the newspapers, right? From September 26, 1831. And I'm going to show you guys a lot of the details that are found in the Confessions of Nat Turner were already on the record from the interrogations of the people that they arrested that have participated in the revolt. So let's go back to the Richmond Constitutional Whig. Now this was published September 26, 1831, while Nat Turner is still on the run. So look, now this is going to be a detailed account of the insurrection. And this account was written September 17th, 1831, but it wasn't published in a newspaper until the 26th. So look, check this out. Being firmly convinced that the public would be gratiated by a detailed account of the late unfortunate occurrence in our county, and likewise conscious that justice to the innocent requires that the causes, the extent, and number of persons involved in the late insurrection should be correctly understood, I have resolved to enter upon the task. Professional duties prevent me from bestowing as much attention to the drawing up of this narrative as I would wish, and I must therefore submit it to the public, crude and undigested, sketched amid scenes, but ill calculated to support me in my opinions. Another inducement exclusive of any sanctioned by humanity is that there are so many rumors afloat and so many misstatements in the public prints that a sacred duty to my country demands a correct view of this tragedy. So we have someone saying that they're going to put down a detailed account of this insurrection as they now have the facts, September 17th, 1831. Let's see, it's only no, I'm not going to read that part. Yeah, let's look at this clip on the right. He says, I have heard many express their fears of a general insurrection. They are ignorant who believe in the possibility of such a thing. What the relative proportion of black to white is in the slaveholding states, I know not, having no means of obtaining correct information at this time. But suppose the preponderance to be in favor of the blacks to any extent, and you cannot create causes for long. It is possible for me debate. It is possible for men. Wait, I'm sorry. Is it possible for men, debased, degraded as they are, ever to concert effective measures? Would the slaves alone in Saint Domingo ever have attempted insurrection? I humbly apprehend not. It was the march of intellect among the free blacks that first gave impulse to the tide which poured its torrents throughout the island. Can any person entertain serious apprehensions from this portion of our population, situated as they are, without arms, without concert? What can be effected? Why, nothing. And a serious attempt will never be made while they are thus situated. Now, this is interesting because he's basically saying that an individual that is oppressed, how our ancestors were oppressed, could never get themselves out of the oppression, basically being ignorant. An ignorant person can be enslaved forever, but only someone intelligent, wise, educated, and with knowledge can effectually liberate a group of people. That's important for you to consider right now today, because the less you know, the easier it is to manipulate and control you. The more you know, the harder it is to manipulate and control you. They still use that against us. So let's get to where he actually describes the insurrection. I'm gonna skip some of that. I put it here just because I wanted to read it. But if you like, you can take screenshots, pause the video, and you can read through some of these articles more in full. So what I want to do is direct you guys to the article on the right. Look, he says, our insurrection, general or not, was the work of fanaticism. General Nat was no preacher, but in his immediate neighborhood, he had acquired the character of a prophet. Like a Roman sibyl, he traced his divination in characters of blood on leaves, alone in the woods. He would arrange them in some conspicuous place, have a dream telling him of the circumstance, and then send some ignorant black to bring them to him, to whom he would interpret their meaning. Thus, by means of this nature, he acquired an immense influence over such persons as he took into his confidence. So here they're liking Prophet Nat Turner to a Roman sibyl. Now, a Roman sibyl was a basically like a female oracle in the Roman Empire. When the Romans wanted to know the desires of the gods, right? When they wanted an oracle from God, when they wanted to know if the gods supported their endeavors or not, they would go to these oracles or to these sibyls. And these oracles or these sibyls would communicate with the gods, and then they would give whoever was asking them the question, they would give them the answer from the god. And so this person is liking Nat Turner to a sibyl, saying that he was receiving, or he was claiming to receive information from God, and he was interpreting that those visions to the enslaved individuals. Now, his visions were all centered around their freedom. Nat Turner was saying that God was telling him that the Negro was about to be free, and this is how their freedom would be brought about. He saw waves of black people killing white people, and this killing would lead to the ultimate freedom of his race. You understand what I'm saying? Now, again, this was in 1831. Some 30 years later, the Civil War kicked off. And during the Civil War, there were a lot of black troops fighting in the Civil War. So who's to say Nat Turner wasn't seeing images of the Civil War? He saw a great war. He saw blacks fighting whites in this war, blacks killing whites in this war, and he saw that this war would lead to the freedom of his people. How do we know that he didn't see visions of the Civil War, the coming Civil War? How do we know that? It's mighty amazing how less than a generation after he saw these visions, a lot of the stuff that he was describing played out with the Civil War and with how the Civil War ended. Right? Just something to think about. Look, he says, he likewise pretended to have conversations with the Holy Spirit and was assured by it that he was invulnerable. Now, this guy saying pretended to have conversations, but how do we know if Nat Turner was actually being contacted by some higher power? How do we know if he was contacted by some higher power or not? But what we do know, see, he tried to throw salt on Nat Turner by saying he pretended to have these conversations. But what we do know for a fact is in the historical record, he claimed to be getting divine inspiration and divine instruction from the other realm. This is what he claimed. And they can't take that claim away from him. Whether they believe it or not, the claim is on the record. And we're glad they put it on the record, whether they're trying to discredit him or not. He says his escape, as he labored under that opinion, is much to be regretted. Look, we're finna get to Nat Turner's wife, but look, this is interesting. He says, "'Tis true that "'Tis true that Nat has for some time thought closely on this subject, for I have in my possession some papers given up by his wife under the lash. They are filled with hieroglyphic characters conveying no definite meaning." Now, this isn't Thomas Gray in the confession saying this, right? We have some person who is some type of political authority in the area during the time when Nat Turner is still on the loose. They ascertained who he was. They found out who his wife was. They went and arrested his wife, and they tortured his wife for information on him. And not only did they torture his wife for information on him, they tortured her for evidence. And they acquired papers that his wife had given up that were supposedly written by Nat Turner. Now, these papers were filled with hieroglyphic characters conveying no definite meaning, meaning they couldn't decipher it. And hieroglyphic makes you think of the hieroglyphic characters in Egypt. Okay, now I don't know if it was actual metal netter. I don't know if it was actual hieroglyphs or if it was just picture writing that Nat Turner had made up. But you know, hey, I don't know. I don't know, right? I don't know exactly what it is, but we do know that these papers were filled with hieroglyphic characters that the Europeans couldn't understand. Look, they say the characters on the oldest paper apparently appear to have been traced with blood, and on each paper a crucifix and the sun is distinctly visible, with the figures 6,000, 30,000, 80,000, etc. There is likewise a piece of paper of a late date, which all agree is a list of his men. If so, they were short of 20. So we have in the historical record that they actually, now I wonder what these papers are read, because I know they didn't destroy these papers. Somebody in America, probably a museum or maybe a personal collector, who knows, has these papers and they don't want to show them to the public. But these papers contain prophecies of Nat Turner. And some of them have been traced with blood on the papers and written in hieroglyphical characters. Imagine what if they found these writings of Nat Turner and they are actual Egyptian writing, metal netter writing that actually have some type of meaning if you understand that language. You know, so he has symbols on these papers, crucifixes, which are crosses, the sun, and he has figures, numbers written out, 6,000, 30,000, 80,000, etc. What is the relevance of these numbers? What was Nat Turner seeing? What were the visions that he was receiving, and what message was he trying to convey? These are all questions that, you know, we just have to ask. We have no specific answer for. But they say that these papers were ascertained from his wife. Okay? I have been credibly informed that something like 3 years ago, Nat received a whipping from his master for saying that the blacks ought to be free and that they would be free one day or other. So even 3 years, some 3 years before the Nat Turner insurrection, Nat Turner was saying that his people was going to be free. He's saying that God showed him this. And again, it's interesting to note some 30 years after his insurrection, the Civil War took place. Look, Nat in person is not remarkable. His nose is flat, his stature rather small, and hair very thin, without any peculiarity of expression. As a proof of his shrewdness, he had acquired a great influence over his neighborhood acquaintance, without being noticed by the whites, pretends to be acquainted with the art of making gunpowder and likewise that of making paper. My own impression is he has left the state. Many believe him to yet be lurking in his neighborhood. There are various rumors of his having been from home many days at a time, preaching in Richmond, Petersburg, and Brunswick. They are, however, entirely without foundation. So yeah, another thing, when the insurrection took place, it was claimed that Nat Turner had snuck away from his plantation leading up to the insurrection and had traveled to other plantations, converting people to his belief system that a great war was coming that would see his people free. And you even have accounts that I'm going to show you in a little bit. You even have accounts of in other places, other states, other than Virginia, slaves being killed because they thought that they had some kind of connection to Nat Turner, right? Let me see what I want to show you guys. Look, he says, the truth is, I have never heard of his preaching anywhere. He extorted and sung at neighborhood meetings, but no further. To an imagination like Nat's, worked upon for years by pretended visions, with the mind satisfied of the possibility of freeing himself and race from bondage, and this by supernatural means. To one thus situated, it is wonderful that the singular appearance of the sun in August should have tempted him to execute his purpose, particularly when its silvery surface was defaced by a black spot, which Nat interpreted into positive proof that he would succeed in his undertaking. Nat encouraged his company on their route by telling them that as the black spot had passed over the sun, so would the blacks pass over the earth. Okay, so we see more of the visions of Nat Turner. And for those of you who don't know, Nat Turner had saw a solar eclipse in February that he took as a sign to carry out his ideas of insurrection that he had held for years. And it wasn't so much in the beginning that Nat Turner wanted to lead an insurrection. It was simply he was getting instruction from the other realm, and he was getting visions from the other realm, and these visions were of the future, and these visions were showing him that the freedom of his people was to soon come about. And in these visions, he saw a great war taking place. He saw blacks killing whites, and he saw that murder, that act of murder leading to the freedom of his people. Now, I'm of the opinion that Nat Turner was seeing visions of the future, the coming Civil War. But in his interpretation was that he had to bring this about himself to start the war. He was going to go from plantation to plantation, killing whites, and it was just somehow it was going to work out, and his visions were going to be fulfilled. Now, his visions obviously weren't fulfilled in his lifetime, but again, 30 years later, I got to keep saying that to drive it in your mind. 30 years later, the Civil War kicked off, and there were thousands upon thousands of blacks fighting in the Civil War, and that culminated in the freedom of his people, just like he prophesied. Okay, just like he prophesied would happen. Having assigned the cause of this insurrection, it becomes necessary to examine its extent as far back as a knowledge of this affair can be ascertained. So they go on to tell us now who initially was with Nat Turner when the insurrection started. He says on Sunday forenoon, the day preceding the fatal Monday, Nat, Austin, Will, Hart, Sam, Henry, and Jack met in an old field near Mr. Joseph Travis's where they had melons and something to eat. Nat was observed to take them out one at a time and hold long conversations with them, explaining his vision and preparing them. And they actually believed in his visions, right? Hold up, y'all's kids. Definitely. Info is power. Info is power. It's the reason why they call him Prophet Nat Turner. It's a reason why they call him that. And you can say what you want. You can believe it or disbelieve it. But the man claimed that he was getting divine revelation. And with this divine revelation, some 30 years later, what he said was going to happen actually happened. And real quick, even right here, where they say on the papers that Nat Turner had, they saw figures of like 6,000, 30,000, 80,000. That could have been the number of troops that he saw. And when you look at the records of the Civil War, there were tens of thousands of blacks fighting in the Civil War. You know, that's real. That's real. But look, having deployed his plans to each man, some brandy was introduced, and the affair talked of together. Even then, one of the party objected to the proposition and denied the possibility of effecting it. So basically, leading up to the actual insurrection, Nat Turner had his closest trusted followers, his disciples. He had his closest trusted followers. They were out eating melons, drinking brandy. You know, Nat Turner told them what was going to happen. They believed in his visions. And on August 21st, they went to Mr. Travis' plantation, killed everybody white that they saw, and went on to the next plantation, and they continued on. Now, we have looked at several documents. Now, there's more, but the video will be too long if I give you guys everything. But we have looked at several documents pertaining to the insurrection of Nat Turner. Now, what I want to do, because as always, I like to let the ancestors speak. Because what they try to say is, oh, you can't believe the white man to give you Nat Turner's story and history. And so up until this point, I've been showing you what the white people were saying in the newspapers. I showed you what the governor said, etc., etc. I showed you what Thomas Gray said in the confessions, etc., etc. So the question that we have to ask ourselves, are there any of our ancestors who were born in slavery knew about Nat Turner's insurrection? Is the information only coming from white people? The answer is no. The information is not only coming from white people, and there are several of our ancestors who left records about the Nat Turner insurrection. So we don't even have to just depend on the white people. Look, Booker T. Washington, he was born enslaved in Hales Fort, Virginia in 1856. So Booker T. Washington was born in slavery. Now, he was born after Nat Turner's insurrection, but he was born in slavery on a slave plantation in Virginia. And in Virginia is where the Nat Turner insurrection took place. And lucky for us, he wrote several works. And in one of his works, The Story of the Negro, The Rise of the Race from Slavery, he gives us information about Prophet Nat Turner. So what do our ancestors have to say about Nat Turner? Look, Booker T. Washington says, when a boy in Virginia, I recall the stories that were told around the cabins by the older slave men and women of the Prophet Nat Turner, as he was called, and of the dreadful incidents that took place during the insurrection of 1831. So Booker T. Washington is telling us that on the slave plantations in Virginia, when he was born, they were still talking about Prophet Nat Turner and his insurrection. So Thomas Gray didn't make Nat. Nat Turner isn't a fictional character. The enslaved knew him and they talked about him, and we got information from non-white sources. Look what he tells us. Nat Turner was a slave preacher in Southampton County, Virginia. During his boyhood days, as I have heard from other slaves, his mother was known to be a very religious woman, taught him that, like Moses, he was to be the deliverer of his race. She took great pains to give him the advantage of what lore and learning she possessed, and taught him verses and parts of chapters from the Bible, particularly the prophets of the Old Testament. He was nursed in the quaint and primitive theology of the plantation hymns, which helped to stimulate the belief in his mission to free his people. So Nat Turner's own mother was a very religious woman, and apparently she received some type of insight from the realm of the divine, that her son, like Moses, was to be a deliverer of his people, his race, and she told him that. And he walked in that his whole life. He grew up to be a silent, dreamy kind of man, going wherever he could, to the caves of the mountains, to brood over the condition of the slaves. So here we have documentation of Nat Turner, the prophet Nat Turner, going off into the caves to brood over the condition of his people. So, when you look at it, you have all of the elements of a man contacted by the divine to help free his people. Tell us all this time. And I believe that's why they want us to believe that Nat Turner was a fictional character, because his story is so powerful. They don't want us to believe in divine intervention. They don't want us to believe in divine intervention. They don't want us to believe that some of our ancestors may have had visions of the future that were legit. Everybody nowadays, that you will have a dream and your dream will come true, and you'll be like, man, I dreamed that was going to happen, and it happened. But you don't want to. You want to believe, since your ancestors were enslaved, nothing like that happened with them. That's just a lie. Look, it appears to have been Turner's plan to collect a large number of slaves and take refuge in the dismal swamp in the extreme southeastern section of Virginia. On August 21st, 1831, with the belief that he was executing the will of God, Nat Turner started forth with 6 companions, who were soon joined by others, making a force of 60 men. He started out with 6, and it swelled to 60. Their plan was to exterminate, as far as they were able, the white race about them. In a short time, 60 white people on different plantations had been killed. The local militia and United States troops were called out. So we don't need Wikipedia. We don't need the Richmond Wind Constitutional. We don't need the writings of Governor John Floyd. We have our own ancestors who were born enslaved that'll tell us this history about Nat Turner. Nat Turner, a fictional character? Are you out of your mind? Like respectfully, because anybody can believe something that's not true. So respectfully, but man, don't let nobody tell you that Nat Turner is a fictional character. They don't know what they're talking about. There's mountains of evidence. But look, Booker T. Washington isn't the only one who spoke about Nat Turner's insurrection. You have a man named Henry Box Brown, who lived in Richmond, Virginia, when Nat Turner led his insurrection. And Henry Box Brown actually wrote a narrative of his own and mentions it. Now, you can actually purchase the narrative of Henry Box Brown. Now, I have it and again, I actually have these books. That's my book on the screen, The Great Escapes, 4 Slave Narratives. Now, in this book is more than the story of Henry Box Brown, but you can buy only the narrative of Henry Box Brown. Now, Henry Box Brown was born in 1815 and he died in 1897. Now, look, he was a 19th century Virginia slave who escaped to freedom at the age of 33 by arranging to have himself mailed in a wooden crate. That's why they called him Henry Box Brown, because he locked himself in a box and he mailed himself to freedom. Okay. Now, at one point, he was actually enslaved in Virginia. I'm going to say it again. He was enslaved in Virginia. Look, look. Childhood and slavery. Henry Brown was born into slavery in 1815 or 1816 on a plantation called Hermitage in Louisa County, Virginia. Look at the last sentence. At age 15, he was sent to work in a tobacco factory in Richmond, Virginia. So he was alive and in Richmond, Virginia when Nat Turner's rebellion took place. So what does the ancestor have to say about Nat Turner's rebellion? I wonder. Look, he says, matter of fact, I ain't gonna zoom in that bad. After the lapse of about a year and a half from the time I commenced living in Richmond, a strange series of events transpired. So he's been in Richmond, Virginia for about a year when the Nat Turner Rebellion kicks off. Look, after the lapse of about a year and a half from the time I commenced living in Richmond, a strange series of events transpired. I did not then know precisely what was the cause of these scenes, for I could not get any very satisfactory information concerning the matter from my master, only that some of the slaves had undertaken to kill their owners. But I have since learned that it was the famous Nat Turner's insurrection. So we have people trying to say that Nat Turner was a fictional character. His insurrection didn't happen. But here we have someone who was enslaved in Virginia when it took place on the ground, telling us that some slaves had undertaken to kill their owners, and this was the famous Nat Turner's insurrection. But they want you to believe that the Nat Turner insurrection was created by Thomas Green in the Confessions of Nat Turner. If that's the case, what is Henry Box Brown talking about? What did he experience? This is real eyewitness account. Look, he says slaves were whipped, hung, and cut down with swords in the streets if found away from their quarters after dark. The whole city was in the utmost confusion and dismay, and a dark cloud of terrific blackness seemed to hang over the heads of the whites. So true is it that the wicked flee when no man pursueth. Great numbers of slaves were locked in the prisons, and many were half hung as it were turned. That is, they were suspended to some limb of a tree with a rope about their necks, so adjusted as not to quite strangle them, and then they were pelted by the men and boys with rotten eggs. This half hanging is a refined species of cruelty peculiar to slavery, I believe. Among the cruelties occasioned by this insurrection, which was, however, some distance from Richmond, was the forbidding of as many as 5 slaves to meet together, except they were at work, and the silencing of all colored preachers. So this insurrection by Nat Turner that they want to make you believe was fake and fictitious. He saw the results. He saw slaves being beaten, killed, tortured because of it. And they actually put certain laws on the books because of it. He is saying because of Nat Turner's insurrection, they put laws in place where no more than 5 slaves could meet together unless they were at work. And they silenced all colored preachers. Why? Because Nat Turner was a preacher. So they said, oh, we can't let these Negroes preach. We can't let them go around teaching the Bible because they're using that to teach about the freedom of their people. Okay? So here we have, like I say, a first-hand account from one of our ancestors who saw what happened. Plain and simple. So, you read through some of that, get the narrative of Henry Box Brown, and you can see it. And look on the page on the right, page 121. He says, how how was Nat Turner's insurrection suppressed? but by a company of United States troops furnished the governor of Virginia at his request, according to your constitution. So uh, basically, we see the same story that we saw in the newspaper articles, the same story that's told in the Confessions of Nat Turner, the same story that's told by Booker T. Washington. The same story over and over and over. We see our ancestors saying the exact same thing. That on August 21st, Nat Turner and his group began to indiscriminately kill white people from plantation to plantation. And they called out the United States military and militia groups, and they just armed regular white people to try to put it down. It's not fiction whatsoever. Now, we also have another ancestor who was enslaved, who has a first-hand account of the effects of Nat Turner's insurrection. This lady is named Harriet Jacobs. Now, what's interesting about Harriet Jacobs is she was enslaved in North Carolina. Now, remember, all of the accounts said when Nat Turner's insurrection took off, it reverberated around the country. You have to understand that it reverberated in other states. And we have a first-hand account of a woman who was enslaved in North Carolina who saw the effects of Nat Turner's insurrection in Virginia. Okay? So Harriet Jacobs was born in either 1813 or 1815, and she died in 1897. So again, she was alive in 1831 when Nat Turner's insurrection took place. And they actually have her narrative. It's called Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl by Harriet Jacobs. Now, again, this is the book I own. That's my book. That's on the screen. I got this book. I own this book. I read it. I own the book by the narrative of Henry Box Brown. I own that book by Booker T. Washington. I own the book, The Confessions of Nat Turner. Those newspaper articles, I own those. All of this information, this is my information. So again, matter of fact, real quick, if you haven't already, like the video. Make sure you like the video. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe. I'm the vanguard for the ancestors. I'm teaching the real history of the ancestors. I'm defending the ancestors, and I'm showing you some things that you possibly never heard before. So make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit that notification bell. And I want to again thank everybody that has ever supported me along the way, because some of these things, especially like those newspaper articles and these books, this stuff, it kind of costs. And just, when people hit me up on the Cash App and they just be, I appreciate the information that you put out. I just want to thank all of you guys for that support. It gives me the opportunity to put some of this stuff together and to do what I love, research and bring information. So thank you to everyone that has supported. Thank you everyone that supports with the likes. Thank you to everyone that supports with the comments, with the subscriptions. Man, it all means a lot. We're going to defend our ancestors on this page. So, in the Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl by Harriet Jacobs, she talks about Nat Turner's insurrection, right? She says, not far from this time, Nat Turner's insurrection broke out, and the news threw our town into great commotion. Strange that they should be alarmed when their slaves were so contented and happy, but so it was. So when you see accounts that the insurrection of Nat Turner reverberated in the other states, what I'm showing you here is one of our ancestors who were enslaved in North Carolina saw the effects of what Nat Turner did in Virginia. Definitely salute to the ancestors. She says it was always the custom. It was always the custom to have a muster every year. On that occasion, every white man shouldered his musket. The citizens and the so-called country gentlemen wore military uniforms. The poor whites took their places in the ranks in everyday dress, some without shoes, some without hats. This grand occasion had already passed, and when the slaves were told there was to be another muster, they were surprised and rejoiced. Poor creatures. They thought it was going to be a holiday. I was informed of the true state of affairs and imparted it to the few I could trust. Most gladly would I have proclaimed it to every slave, but I dared not. all could not be relied on. Mighty is the power of the torturing lash. So what she's talking about is every year in her city in North Carolina, they had something that they called the muster. It was like a holiday where every white man got his musket. They dressed up in military uniforms, probably had some parades and things like that. And, they had a good time. And so when Nat Turner's insurrection took off in Virginia, the people in North Carolina decided to have another muster. But this was in fear of a slave insurrection in their state as well. And so they were just trying to get everybody armed in the streets so that they could terrorize the blacks and find out if anybody in their state was preparing an insurrection or a revolt. So she's saying that the poor creatures, they thought it was going to be a holiday. When they heard that there was going to be another muster, they thought it was going to be, more parades, and it was going to be the type of muster that they have every year. But she knew that this one was really they were just talking about everybody needs to be armed and ready, because they were about to go around in North Carolina killing and torturing slaves because of what Nat Turner had done. She says, by sunrise, people were pouring in from every quarter within 20 miles of the town. I knew the houses were to be searched, and I expected it would only be done by country bullies and the poor whites. I knew nothing annoyed them so much as to see colored people living in comfort and respectability, so I made arrangements for them with especial care. I arranged everything in my grandmother's house as neatly as possible. So what they did, they rounded up all of the white people, they armed all of the white people, and they began to go door to door in North Carolina because they thought, and this is real, they thought that blacks all over the country had conspired and blacks were just about to start killing every white person in every state that they saw, and they were terrified, and they were trying to do everything that they could to bring an end to this possible insurrection. But she's saying that the people in her neighborhood, they had no plans of an insurrection. And honestly, Nat Turner hadn't talked to them. But the fear that he put in them was so strong that colored people everywhere suffered. Let's get to some of the violence that happened. She said, look, those who never witnessed such scenes can hardly believe what I know was inflicted at this time on innocent men, women, and children, against whom there was not the slightest ground for suspicion. Colored people and slaves who lived in remote parts of the town suffered in an especial manner. In some cases, the searchers scattered powder and shot among their clothes and then sent other parties to find them and bring them forward as proof that they were plotting insurrection. Everywhere, men, women, and children were whipped till the blood stood in puddles at their feet. Some received 500 lashes. Others were tied hands and feet and tortured with the bucking paddle, which blisters the skin terribly. The dwellings of the colored people, unless they happened to be protected by some influential white person who was nigh at hand, were robbed of clothing and everything else the marauders thought worth carrying away. All day long, these unfeeling wretches went round like a troop of demons, terrifying and tormenting the helpless. At night, they formed themselves into patrol bands and went wherever they chose among the colored people, acting out their brutal will. Many women hid themselves in swamps and woods. Many women hid themselves in woods and swamps to keep out of their way. If any husbands or fathers told of these outrages, they were tied up to the public whipping post and cruelly scourged for telling lies about white men. The consternation was universal. No two people that had the slightest tinge of color in their faces dared to be seen talking together. So they want you to believe that the insurrection of Nat Turner is fictional. But all the way in North Carolina, Nat Turner was so real. His insurrection was so real. It had put the white people in the country into such a disarray that all the way in North Carolina, they were tormenting the black population, believing that they were a part of the conspiracy and insurrection as well. They were beating, murdering, and raping our ancestors. And if the fathers and husbands tried to speak up for their mothers and sisters and wives and daughters who were violated, they were beat as well. And it said that they were telling lies. Okay, and so she goes on to describe how her particular house was searched. So her particular house was searched while they were, quote unquote, not only looking for Nat Turner, but looking for other insurrectionists as well. Remember, Nat Turner was not arrested until October 30th. So they didn't know if he was still in Virginia. They didn't know if he had went to North Carolina. They didn't know if he had escaped to another state, and he had followers in another state. So they were in a frenzy trying to find the prophet. They were in a frenzy trying to find the prophet Nat Turner and anybody else that was working with him. So on these two pages, you can screenshot these and read through. If you don't have the book, I put this up there so you guys could read through it. But I'm not going to read everything on these particular pages, right? What I want to go to is this right this right here. This right here. She says every day, right here, every day for a fortnight, that's like a month, I believe. If I looked out, I saw horsemen with some poor panting Negro tied to their saddles and compelled by the lash to keep up with their speed till they arrived at the jail yard. Those who had been whipped too unmercifully to walk were washed with brine, tossed into a cart, and carried to jail. One black man, who had not fortitude to endure scourging, promised to give information about the conspiracy, but it turned out that he knew nothing at all. He had not even heard the name of Nat Turner. The poor fellow had, however, made up a story which augmented his own sufferings and those of the colored people. So this is again why they said that there were a lot of rumors going around. Some of the black people were making stuff up because they didn't want to be beat. The day patrol continued for some weeks, and at sundown, a night guard was substituted. Nothing at all was proved against the colored people, bond or free, so even free Negroes were tortured. The wrath of the slaveholders was somewhat appeased by the capture of Nat Turner. The imprisoned were released, the slaves were sent to their masters, and the free were permitted to return to their ravished homes. So the country was in a total uproar until Nat Turner was found and arrested. Okay, so remember, Nat Turner and his insurrection are real history, and this is 100% proof. We have our ancestors who were enslaved at that time that speaks about their first-hand account. I showed you guys newspaper articles. I showed you guys things written by governors that attest to this fact. But what I'm going to do now, I'm going to show you guys something else, right? I'm going to show you guys something else. What I wanted to do is I wanted to go through all of that because I wanted to show you guys the actual records, right? I wanted to show you guys that you can actually find these records if you look for them. But I'm going to give you guys something that I want you guys to look up on your own. If you are interested in the Nat Turner's rebellion and you would like to see a lot of the evidence that they have for it, I'm going to show you guys what you could do, right? I'm going to show you guys what you could do. Now, online, you can go to natturnerproject.org. It's on your screen. You can go to natturnerproject.org, and all of these documents and more are on this website. Now, I wanted to show you guys the actual facsimiles, the real documents themselves, because I know that some people will say, even if I show you a newspaper clipping on this website, a lot of people would say, How do I even know that that newspaper clipping is real? So I wanted to show you guys what the newspaper clippings actually look like first. But like, let's say you can go to this website. Let's say you go to Revolt. You can go to newspaper, and it'll give you several newspaper articles. Some of them I didn't show you. That's pertaining to Nat Turner's rebellion. You have the Richmond Constitutional Whig, August 23rd. Richmond Inquirer, August 26th. Petersburg Intelligencer, August 26th. You can click on any one of these. Like, let's click on this one, and it will take you to information about Nat Turner's insurrection that was published in the newspaper. Now, I didn't begin with this because if I showed you this, there would be somebody in the comments that would say, how do I even know that that was actually in the newspaper? So I took the time to show you the actual newspapers themselves and read to you from the clippings. But look, you can go here and click on Revolt. You can go to trial records. They even have the trial records of the individuals that was enslaved that fought alongside Nat Turner. You know, the trial of Daniel, slave of Richard Porter, August 31st, 1831. He was executed. And you can you got witness testimony and whatnot. You have the accusations. And thereupon Daniel, a Negro man, slave, the property of Richard Porter, and the said information mentioned was brought into court and set to bar in custody of the jailer of this county, and the court doth assign William C. Parker, Esquire, attorney, to defend the prisoner, and as the prisoner being duly arraigned of the premises, pleaded not guilty to the information. And you can basically read what happened. Okay, you can basically read what happened. And they have these trial records for pretty much everybody that was arrested with him. You know, that's real. Everybody that was arrested with him. And so you could go through this, and when you have more time, you can go through this information and get a more fuller understanding of exactly what happened. You can even go to where it says aftermath, and they will show you things like the laws that were enacted because of the Nat Turner slave insurrection. So people try to say that Nat Turner isn't real, his insurrection isn't real, it never happened. But they actually changed the laws on the books because of it. And what a lot of people don't know is, because they were so afraid after the Nat Turner insurrection, the abolitionist movement grew. A lot more people were like, hey, man, whoa, wait a minute. We never considered these slaves or these black people just rising up and just randomly killing white people. We never thought about that. But now that it was a reality, they were like, hey, we got to do something. Either some states wanted to get all of the black people out of their house. They not out of the house, but out of the state. They were like, hey, I don't want no free black people in this state no more. You in some states, you couldn't even bring enslaved people into the state no more. They were like, no, we don't want no more black people because they might rebel. And so the abolitionist movement grew a lot. It got a lot more steam behind it, because a lot of people were saying, hey, we need to do something about this slavery, because if we try to keep these people enslaved too much longer, they might kill us all. And they didn't want a bloodbath. So even with that, even though Nat Turner's rebellion was quote unquote put down and he was executed and hung, the effects of what he did had a real world effect in leading to our subsequent freedom. You even have look, they say that Nat Turner is fake. Check this out, family. In the Smithsonian, they have what they claim to be Nat Turner's Bible. Nat Turner's Bible gave the enslaved rebel the resolve to rise up. Look, on November 5th, 1831, when Judge Jeremiah Cobb of Southampton County, Virginia, sentenced slave rebel Nat Turner to death by hanging, he ordered the Commonwealth to reimburse the estate of Turner's slaughtered master. As confiscated chattel, Turner's life was valued at $375. 6 days later, the 30-year-old Turner was hanged and his body mutilated, but his powerful legacy transcended the punishments. Almost 200 years later, Turner endures as a powerful symbol of uncompromising resistance to slavery, a latter-day voice insisting that Black lives matter. His Bible, which he is believed to have been holding when he was captured, serves now as a centerpiece of the National Museum of African American History's collection. The small volume, shorn of covers, part of its spine, and the Book of Revelation will be on display when the museum opens on September 24th, 2016. So they actually have what they're claiming to be Nat Turner's Bible, this so-called fictional character, right there. Now you could argue if that's his Bible or not, but he had to have a Bible. You know, he had to have a Bible. So yeah, what I want you guys to do though, in all honesty, I want you guys to go to natturnerproject.org and I want you guys to read up on that. I want you guys to go see some more of those sources that I didn't have time to put into this right here. Okay. It's real interesting. You won't be disappointed. You won't be disappointed. So as I wrap this up, Nat Turner and his insurrection are real, 100% proof. Like the video, make sure you subscribe. If you could drop $1 in the Cash App, I'd appreciate it. You could drop a like, I appreciate it. You could drop a comment, I appreciate it. All support is welcome. Now, if you encounter somebody who's saying that Nat Turner is a fictional character and his insurrection isn't real, refer them to this video and refer them to the documentation that I presented, and they will quickly be shut down. So I thank you guys for tuning in. Real talk. The ones that have been with me since the beginning of this live stream, I appreciate that. Thank you guys for commenting. Thank you for all of the love. Thank you for all of the support. And I hope you feel as if I intelligently dealt with the claim that Nat Turner is a fictional character. And I hope I presented enough evidence to validate that our ancestor is real. What our ancestor did was real, and the reasons behind why he did it was real. And from this moment forward, anybody who's seen this video, do not allow someone to tell you that Nat Turner is a fictional character. There's mountains of evidence for him. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. This is your brother Matthew Daniels on Matthew Daniels TV. I am the illustrious author, writer, scribe, and bookworm. But I'm not just a bookworm, world. I am the real bookworm. Make sure you get it right. I'm doing the book game like it ain't never been done before. And I'm doing the book game like it'll probably never be done again. I got 16 published works out right now. Y'all go check it out. Suicide Note by Matthew Daniels. Thicker Than Water by Matthew Daniels. Big Game Hunting by Matthew Daniels. My Beautiful and Loving Wife by Matthew Daniels. And Morning Motivation with Matthew Daniels, volume 1 through 12, all available on YouTube. I'm doing the book game like it ain't never been done before, family. Thank you guys for tuning in. I love you guys. Hotep, Shalom, Ashe, peace. Hey, let's make intelligence great again. Read a book, man.